Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Wednesdays with Woodward, a webinar series, as you know, where we convene leading experts talking about really interesting things: business, public policy, society, and of course, insurance. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm Joan Woodward, president of the Travelers Institute. So before we get started, I'd like to share our disclaimer about today's program. And a huge thanks to our program partners today: trustedchoice.com, the Metro Hartford Alliance, the Masters in FinTech program at UConn, the Insurance Association of Connecticut. We really appreciate your support throughout the whole year. So now on to our terrific program today. We are going to be talking all about a topic that a lot of us are really conflicted about. Whether you're young or old, all of us at some point are going to retire. And just to clarify, today's conversation is really talking about everything in retirement except your finances. So that's important. Our focus is really going to be how to find meaning and purpose and fulfilling retirement when you do that. So this brings up emotions. I know for me, certainly in my family, everyone thinks about, what are you going to do? Are you going to be happy? Your phone's not going to ring. Are you going to travel? Are you going to eat, drink? Are you going to watch more videos? Like, what is on your plate? So I think that the most exciting part of today's program is two friends of mine who are joining us to talk about their experiences. And there's nothing like learning from others. And they're going to talk about the things that they love in their retirement and the things that maybe didn't go so well. So these executives of the insurance industry are Mark and Jody Rollins. So Mark spent 38 years as a third generation owner of an insurance agency in Bronxville, New York. He and his brother sold it to Brown & Brown in 2013, and then he stayed on for 5 more years before he retired. Jody Rollins has a 33-year career as a senior level executive at Chubb. Jody left at the same time as Mark at the end of 2018, and as you're going to hear in their story, they had a bumpy start in their retirement, but then it evolved and they switched up a few things. They were inspired by a number of people that they spoke with. And so we're really fortunate to have the Rollins share their story with us today and give us their advice. So if you have questions for Mark and Jody, please drop them in the Q&A feature. We're going to get to all the questions we can later in the show. So Mark, Jody, welcome. It is so great to have you both with me today.
Thank you. It's certainly great to be here as well. Typically, every time we met, we were talking insurance, and now we're not. So this is interesting.
Yeah, I think I met you all maybe 15 years ago at one of the Travelers Leadership Conferences. And so it's so nice to reconnect with you. Why don't we start out with you just kind of both telling us a little bit about yourselves first and what you've been doing these past 5 years since you left your careers.
Past 5 years.
I know. Wow. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Well, our story really began about 10 years ago. And that's when my brother Chuck and I sold our agency to Brown & Brown. And that triggered conversations with Jody and I about what our retirement would look like. I was 55 at the time and thought for sure I'd work another 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. And, I was a senior level executive at Chubb and I loved it. I loved insurance, and everyone at our dinner table will laugh every time I say that. But I loved my teams and the clients and the problems and everything that went with it. And Mark and I had a real clear, simple vision of retirement. We had a second home in Connecticut. We would have the kids come and visit all the time. Our parents would be included, and then we'd coax the kids to have their weddings there. That was pretty much our retirement plan.
Yeah, it was simple. It was spending time with kids and parents, doing a lot of travel, spending a couple months each year in Florida, really building a life around our kids, our grandchildren, and our parents.
And our vision did include some things that you're probably thinking of too, right? Like letting go of some things, letting go of responsibilities and inboxes and emails. And in my world, it was claims and marketing and, managing people and having someone else manage my calendar where I didn't feel like I was in control, right? Always being on call. So, we wanted to let go of those things, and we knew that.
Yeah, because the daily grind was getting to both of us. We looked forward to freedom to choose what we want to do, when we want to do it, and who we want to do it with.
So if you think about it, we thought we knew what we wanted in retirement and we knew what we didn't want, right?
Right. But about a year later, amidst all of our dreaming of retirement, my dad died. And my father was the third generation owner of our agency, and he retired at the age of 65, and he failed miserably at retirement. He's really a lot of the inspiration why we started this. You know, I tell people he was like the Don Draper of the insurance agency. He had a bar in his office with his favorite scotch and vodka, and he'd ring a bell every night to say, hey, the day is over, let's have a drink. But he took his 3-martini lunch practice into retirement, and unfortunately, he drank himself to death. And a year later, my mom died from dementia. So that was a big setback for Jody and I.
And if you think about those years and the timing, that was 2014 and 2015. And for me in 2015, Chubb announced that they were going to be purchased by Ace, which would then become Chubb again. So Chubb survived the name, but the culture and everything started to change very quickly. So I had a huge integration project in front of me in 2015. And then in 2016, everything started to unravel a bit for me. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. My 3 daughters had gone off to college, so we were empty nesters. So we had all those feelings and emotions going on. And then in 2017, my mom actually passed away, which was devastating for me and for my retirement plans because she was a big part of it.
So like Jody said, now we're empty nesters. We're all alone trying to figure out what that looks like. And it's 3 years post-sale in my agency. And I'm working really hard, harder than I have before, but I'm starting to lose my drive and passion. And so I speak to my boss and I say, listen, I'm done. I've done this for 3 years. I want to step down as office leader. I just want my top 25 clients. I want to go back to service them. That's what I'm really good at. So I stepped down. What I didn't realize was that first Monday, as I walked in, I realized I was instantly irrelevant to the agency. I walked past the conference room where the weekly leadership team meeting was taking place that I led for 30 years, and I wasn't even invited to that meeting anymore.
So you have to imagine this, right? So it's Mark and I in our house, bumbling around, no kids. He's stepping down from his role. And in my role, my company, now I'm in the middle of deep integration and emerging, new leadership coming in, changing structures. I was feeling, honestly, a little bit like I'd been thrown back into the 80s with some of the cultural changes that were happening. And all of a sudden, my fulfillment in my job that I loved, I mean, I told you I loved it, it started to fade.
So there's Jody working her butt off and me not, because I don't have any responsibilities. So I start going in late and coming home early every day. One day it's 3 o'clock. I have nothing to do. My email box is empty. There's no one asking me any questions. My phone isn't ringing. So I go home at 3 o'clock. I open a bottle of our favorite wine, Belgloss Pinot Noir. I pour a glass. I get in front of the TV. I turn it on and I turn on Ellen. I had become addicted to daytime TV during this phase of my retirement or semi-retirement.
And so you don't know me that well, but you can imagine how great that was to come off of a hard day's work, bags of groceries in hand, in on 2 wheels, to find Mark sitting in the chair with an empty glass of wine watching Ellen and wanting to tell me all about it.
So our vision of a soft landing in retirement suddenly seemed out of reach. You know, we both started really bad habits. My engagement at work continued to falter, and it was a hard time for us.
Yeah. And, you know, I came home one day in 2018. And so it's, 3 years past original, merger announcement, takeover announcement, and a lot of trials and tribulations. And I just said to Mark, after a really terrible meeting that I was in, and just not a healthy place for me to be, I said to Mark, you know what? I'm going to pitch an early retirement. You got to remember, it's 2018 and I was 53 years old. And I put together a pitch for an early retirement.
So we both left December 28th, 2018. That was our last day of work. And what did we do? Well, we ran away. We jumped on airplanes. We traveled the world for about 7 months.
Yeah.
We went everywhere.
We did. We went to Italy and Barcelona and London and a couple of weeks in Florence.
Oh, Florence was amazing. And Lisbon. And then we went to Bora Bora for 2 weeks to celebrate our retirement. That was at the end of that 7-month period. It was an amazing trip.
You know, we were having a great time, and really this was what we thought our retirement vision would be. So we were really trying to live it out, right? We were traveling, we were entertaining friends and family, we were enjoying our second home in Connecticut. But then it became clear that that pace and those lifestyle choices were not sustainable.
No, we were drinking every single night. We were going out to eat every night. We weren't cooking. We weren't exercising. We were really taking very poor shape of ourselves. And it was obvious.
It was. And then I had one of those realizations. So for maybe the women and men on the call, but especially the women, I think, I had one of my daughters come up to me and say, you know, I've got an observation. You are no longer in any family photos. You're always taking the photo, or you're hiding behind somebody in a photo. Why aren't you in the photos anymore? We have like a year with you not in photos. And it really struck me that I had to take a hard look. I wasn't feeling well. I wasn't looking good. I didn't have great self-esteem. We were just tired all the time, and we were retired.
So with all this happening, our first grandson, Luca, is born. We have 6 children, and we realize that there's a good chance we're going to have more than one grandchild. So we needed to take a pivot. We didn't want to end up like my dad, who died at the age of 80 from poor habits.
You know, so we started to rethink, what should the next 30 years look like? And we changed our focus to really drill down. This is the corporate background in me. Let's drill down on 5 things we could really work on. So we chose physical wellness, mental wellness, relationship, our spouse partner relationship, and then how are we going to share our wisdom into the communities to give back?
So over a 12-month period, we went through all this change, and people, our friends and our kids, noticed the change. We looked better. Our relationship was blossoming. Our life took on a whole new meaning.
And as people were asking what we were doing, we offered to help them, right? So, hey, we have these 5 pillars, you know, what do you do in these areas? And we started kind of softly coaching people. And then Retirement Transformed was born.
And here we are today, 5 years later from that. We have online courses, we do one-on-one coaching, and most recently, a couple of years ago, started our YouTube channel.
It's definitely been quite a journey, but it's changed the way the next 30 years are going to look for us and how retirement in general looks for us.
Well, that's a lot. And I think, you know, just in my own life, thinking about traveling and eating around the world, having different wines. I mean, that sounds like this incredible thing, but you pivoted when you realized that wasn't sustainable. And I love how you talk about the next 30 years. So, all right, everyone in my audience, we're going to ask you 3 questions because we want to know who's tuned in today. And then we're going to dig into the new lifestyle Mark and Jody have created for themselves. So first polling question coming up now. All right. So be honest on all this. This is all anonymous. When are you considering retirement? In the next year, next 12 months or so, in the next 5 years, okay, in the next 10, or you just don't know, or maybe you're scared to retire. We're going to dig into that too. So short term, medium term, or long term. It'll give us a sense of our audience here. And the tips tricks we're going to offer them. Okay, so it looks to me like about 60% of the audience is either going to retire in the next year or the next 5 years. So we'll say in the next 5 is 60% of the audience. But we also have about, 40% or so saying in the next 10, or they're really not sure. I love to speak to the people who are retiring in the next year, which is 20% right there. So we're going to talk to those folks immediately, because you guys have to pay attention because you want that healthy lifestyle that Mark and Jody have created for themselves. Okay, next question. So let's see that next question. Here we go. How are you feeling about retirement? I can't wait. I'm counting the days, the hours down. I'm very nervous. So this is me. I would choose this. For anybody who knows me, I'm very nervous about thinking about retirement. And then the last category, I could also put myself in this one. I don't want to retire because I think I have the best job in the insurance industry. So, okay. So 35% of the audience say they can't wait. They're counting the days. 60% say they're nervous. And I'm going to add 60% to the 7% and say 70% of us on this call are either nervous about retiring, which is why, of course, you're joining our call, or saying they don't want to retire. So very interesting. And thank you all for joining today. We had 5,000 people sign up for this webinar, so it's clearly important. All right, next question. Last question for everyone. How do you plan on spending your time during retirement? So you can choose as many as you want. So this is not a one-shot deal. What are you going to do when you retire? What do you think you're going to do when you retire? A lot of people obviously taking care of the family, just chilling out, maybe traveling, focusing on your health, which is an excellent one. I'm glad to see that category is up there. Getting involved in community. As you all know, we have a citizen travelers platform now that we talk about civic engagement being so important. And so I'm glad to see the half of my audience says they're going to get involved in community. 70%, you guys, say travel and chill, which sounds to me like your first 7 months, the travel and chill part. 62% say health. Not a lot of people are thinking about starting a new business, so only 13% of the audience. So why don't you guys spend a minute and comment on, again, you're talking to people who are going to retire between, say, now and 5 years. Look at what they think they're going to do, and then speak to the 70% of my audience say they're nervous about it.
You know what, that doesn't surprise us really at all. A lot of the people that we talk to, a lot of the clients that we have start from a nervous position, right? Because even though you can chart your course and you have control, and we've all started saving for retirement since the day we started working, right? So financially, we've climbed mountains over the years. I know, my 30 plus years at Chubb, I climbed those mountains. So that part is working. But the fear is, what am I going to do every day? I love that that you had a big percentage say get involved in the community.
Yeah, it's good.
Because volunteering, building community, finding new community is just a head start on people who don't want to do any of that. And we do have clients that tell us they don't want to do any of that. So it's a real juxtaposition.
And I think I just want to validate that if you are afraid and you're fearful of it, that's okay. That's how you feel, and you should be okay with that. The thing is to figure a way through that fear. There's a great book that we love called The Way of Transition by William Bridges. And it's a fantastic book that talks about, particularly for us, when you leave retirement, when you have to leave something behind before you can move into something in the future, but you really need to design that. Otherwise you get stuck in the middle. And I was there for 10 years. I was in between leaving my job as the CEO of the Rollins agency, working for Brown & Brown, figuring out what to do next. You just get confused, and you have to get clarity around retirement for sure.
And when you're in that middle, it's messy, right? Any transition, there's always a messy middle. As long as you have a plan on the other side, that seems to get easier. The other observation I'd make, Joan, is it's great that there are people on this call that are 1 to 5 years out. That's really when you want to start thinking, communicating, looking into hobbies. Heck, I was a senior executive at Chubb. I didn't have a lot of hobbies. I also have 6 kids. So hobbies were not a thing for me. I played the occasional round of golf, but I didn't have a lot of hobbies. And it terrified me that I was going to end up in retirement with nothing to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people on this call would say that they may have golf, and now everybody knows I have golf as well, but having that outside kind of life, you don't, because you're so busy working, you're on the road all the time. I want to talk about transitions, because you guys kind of had 2 transitions. One, your first transition was that first 7 months of what you thought your 30 years was going to look like, which is, again, traveling the world, doing all the things that you just thought would be amazing. And then your second transition. So how difficult was it to overcome the first transition, leaving jobs? How was it not your phone not ringing, or maybe your BlackBerry or your BlackBerry? I'm dating.
BlackBerry.
Oh, come on. No, but you had that BlackBerry. I'm sure you had that.
We had Blackberries. We did. Listen, I got into business before there was fax machines and all that. I had a Hagstrom Atlas that I used to try to drive around. So.
Right. So talk about your transition and how you maybe individually, I don't want to talk about the Ellen opening a bottle of wine, because I think everybody can figure out how that went. But how did you get over that? Well,
listen, the first Monday morning for anyone who retires, if you retire on a Friday or whatever day it is, the next day you wake up and there's this confusion of joy and freedom and fear and concern. And, you know, it can really affect you in a bad way. And it does affect a lot of people in a bad way. So first, you have to realize that you're entering a new phase of life and something needs to change, because you're not going to have the job to go to. You're not going to have that community. And I think there's a couple slides when we talk about this stuff, but your life dramatically is changing like in an instant. And it's really hard. It's really hard to get through that first stage of what do I do now?
Right. I mean, you know, for me, when I tell you I loved my job and I loved the industry and I loved my teams, that gave me so much fulfillment in my life. Now, I love my kids and I love my husband and I love my new puppy and all that. That gave me some fulfillment, but I wasn't built traditionally to get all my energy from that. So I had, as a female leader, a huge void, because I thought, you know, when I leave, they're all going to call me. They're all going to still need me. I mean, I was in the middle of 2 or 3 deals. I tried to wrap up everything I could, but I'm sure my phone's going to ring. And I will tell you, I probably spent a week or 2 sitting there thinking, today's the day. Today's the day. They're going to all call me because they all need advice on something. And literally, life goes on for everybody else. And I felt the hardest part of that transition for me was that isolation. I, was a working mom. I didn't have a whole lot of social networks. I just said I didn't have a whole lot of hobbies. So I really kind of bumbled around during that first week or 2 thinking, well, what do I do? Well, I'm going to get a Peloton. Okay, so I'm going to be on my Peloton. Now I'm just going to be on the Peloton all the time. But, just really trying to find out what happens next.
So let's talk about, you obviously struggled with this, as I'm sure many on the call today are thinking about how they're going to struggle with it. What would surprise my audience to know about your kind of that transition, and what may surprise my audience?
Because how bad it was, or how we got through it?
Either.
I would say that what might surprise your audience is that we worked hard at getting through this phase of our life. It takes energy, it takes effort, it takes research, it takes researching about yourself. It really takes a lot of effort to find this passion, this fulfillment, this reason to get up in the morning every day. That doesn't happen naturally. You just cannot, this whole thing about retirement, it's not about, and it shouldn't be about, retiring from something. You have to retire to something. So maybe that's the big aha here. You've got to figure out what you're retiring into, or you will be lost for a long period of time.
I will tell you, the thing that surprised me the most is as I was counting down to retirement, the things I couldn't wait to have stop. Floor was my assistant, and there'd be a line of people at my office, before I got in the morning. And I'm thinking, my calendar's packed. I had no control over this. I've got all these deals and all these things happening. I thought, I can't wait to not have that. I couldn't believe how much I missed it.
Yeah,
I really couldn't believe
me.
How much I missed it. And we weren't TV people, but as I did start to do some research, some surprising things really came to roost with us. Like, people over the age of 65 watch 38 hours of TV a week.
On average.
They create that to be a full-time job. And I knew that was something we weren't going to be able to, that wasn't going to be it for us. And that, it's easy to get a cocktail with friends at, noon, and then have a glass of wine before dinner. And, before you know it, you're, and I'm a calorie counter. So I was like, well, geez, that's a lot of sugar going in every day, and then not sleeping well at night. So I was most surprised at how much I missed what I thought I couldn't wait to get rid of, and how isolated I felt just kind of in my own world to charge my own plan.
So let's take the pivot. So you had the 7 months or so. You went through that transition. Then you decide to start a business. You're starting the Retirement Transform. What motivated you to build a business? You said you used the word, I did a lot of research, which of course sounds like me. It sounds like Jody. We could be sisters, I think,
Right.
Jody, because, if you're going to be good at something, you want to know what's out there in terms of your research. So what motivated you to build a business, right? And why don't you guys just start with that?
Well, so
In the
we're
process.
retired.
Yep.
So we're retired. We're struggling a bit. We're sitting across from each other having coffee 3 or 4 days in a row. And we start to Google retirement planning, retirement lifestyle, retirement everything. And 99.9% of what came up was financial planning. And we didn't need that. We had a financial planner. We were financially independent now. We could last the next 30 years doing whatever we wanted to do, within reason, of course. But there wasn't any help beyond the numbers. So that's when we started just to create schedules for ourselves, how to bring habits into our life. What are some healthy habits? And the research pivoted from retirement lifestyle to just being healthy. And we took all of that and started to build good practices for ourselves, which ended up turning into an online course and some coaching. So it really was the lack of resources out there that caused us to create something. Because again, my dad was an inspiration. I didn't want to get on the same path as him, and easy to do that.
And full disclosure, when we first started this business, because I'm a researcher, Joan, because I need to know facts and figures and studies, I went back to the University of Pennsylvania and took a course in applied positive psychology. I felt that I had such a corporate hangover, and I was so not an entrepreneur, and I so didn't see the world, glass half full. I needed to rejigger my mind. So I went and took a course at Penn, and that was my first entree in. Mark started the business. He was off and running. And I was like, you know what? I need to find some centering. I need to get more. I need to get smarter. How do I become an entrepreneur? I'm a corporate girl. Like, how do I become an entrepreneur? And this, when I engaged with the folks down at Penn, I got a real good boost of energy around building a business together.
Okay, so why don't you just tell us, assume my audience knows nothing about your business. So tell us exactly, what does Retirement Transform do for people?
So we are a consulting company. We have some online courses that people can buy to take them through. Our premier course is an 11-week course with 11 weeks of videos, 30 worksheets. It really helps people from beginning to end figure out what to do in retirement. And it's great. And that's sort of a core product that we have. We do one-on-one coaching, we do some speaking, but really it's evolved into our YouTube channel, which we started a couple of years ago as let's try it and see what happens. People kept encouraging us, and it's turned into a legit full-on business, which is really cool.
It is. It's fun. I mean, it's funny to our 6 kids that are aged 38 to 25. They think it's funny that we think we're YouTubers, but we put out content a couple times a week, and it becomes a way that we can spread the message. So we really built the courses and the coursework around the fears that we were investigating that clients were coming to us on. Things like, I feel isolated, I'm lonely, I don't know what to do with my 40 hours a week, I don't have good relationships. Suddenly I was CEO of everything, and my wife doesn't want me, or my husband doesn't want me to, set the table because I don't do it right, whatever it might be. So we started to build this course around what we were hearing and what we were doing research on around the fears people had in the retirement lifestyle.
And the YouTube is completely free. So we put up free videos. There's almost 300 videos in there on all of the things we've been talking about, everything non-financial.
Wow, you guys are busy. 300 in 5
Yeah.
years. I've done 100 webinars in 3 years. 300's a lot. Okay, so I took a little peek at your Retirement Transformed webinar. And you talk about there's 5 key focus areas. I want to go through each one of these. So my audience members, this is where we're going to get smart about a smart retirement and a fulfilled retirement. Let's talk about the 5 areas and just literally go slow, go one by one so we could take notes.
Yeah.
Well, physical wellness is obvious. It's really taking care of your body, and it's really the starting point and the number one part of living longer and healthier. So that is probably the most critical area for all of us to spend time on.
And really, this is the time in your life when you can do that. You can set benchmarks. You can talk to your doctor. You can talk to a nutritionist. You can talk to a naturopath. You can kind of get a baseline as to where you're starting. And no more do you have the, I don't have time. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go for a walk. I don't have time to, build muscle over bone, which we all have to do as we age, because if you fall, you want muscle around your bone, right? So Mark and I really decided that physical wellness was going to be, the number one pillar that we wanted to focus on. Now, I'll tell you, I was a college athlete. I was an All-American lacrosse player. So
that doesn't surprise me. Okay, that doesn't surprise me.
So I love being active. Have always loved being active. But like many people during your career, you kind of use the time excuse, right? I realized at this phase of my life that the way I used to get cardio or get stretching or build muscle, now that I'm 58 years old, it's not the same. It doesn't work the same for me anymore. So I had to take my whole physical wellness program, and Mark did the same thing. And then we rejiggered it so that we were doing what was actually working better for our bodies. And for me, that became 90 minutes of hot yoga every day. And that changed my physical wellness.
The second pillar, mental wellness.
Wait, Mark, I'll stop you because Jody said something that I think maybe some in our audience may not know about. So you said you talked to your doctor, talked to your nutritionist, and then you used another word that I didn't recognize. So Jody, who else did you talk to?
Our naturopath. So we actually have a naturopath doctor that that does deeper blood studies, deeper saliva studies, and helps you actually work with your diet, your exercise, your hydration, your electrolytes, your macronutrients. She helps you kind of wean yourself away from what we would call lifestyle drugs. So, Mark for example, Mark was pre-diabetic. As thin as he was pre-diabetic. And we were able to utilize her help with a Mediterranean diet to get him off of and out of the pre-diabetic stage and off of those meds.
Okay, so for my audience out there, if you are just joining us in the last couple months, every January, go back and look, every January, I have a healthy eating and exercise. Just when we start to slip from our New Year's resolutions, I remind us in late January about your health. And so go back and look at our webinar from last January and make sure to sign up for our January webinar 2024, because I have a real surprise about nutrition, health, and exercise. It's going to be very fun. It's at the end of January, so I'm just giving a little teaser for that. Okay, Mark, number 2.
Cool. Mental wellness. This is really critical. And I think especially for men, I don't know, I want to get serious for a minute, but the highest group of people in the United States that perform successful suicides are men over the age of 65. And that's a staggering number to think about. And it's really because men tend to get isolated more than women. We don't build community as well as women. We just want to figure it out ourselves. We want to fix it ourselves. We want to, we're okay being alone, but then when you're alone for more than 2 weeks, then it's chronic loneliness, and it's one of the worst things for you because it exacerbates kidney disease, heart disease, all of that, high blood pressure. So, meditation, journaling, seeing a therapist if you need one, you've got to really take care of your mind as much as you do your body.
And this is a really good, again, a good time of life to do that. Mark was always a really good journaler. I was never a really great journaler. I mean, I'd sit down to journal and one of the 6 kids would need something, right? Or the dog needed to go out, or I had a call that I had to take. So I always had excuses for why that didn't work for me. And I really put my mind to a meditative state before yoga. I would meditate 15 minutes, do my 90 minutes of yoga, and come home and journal. And that became a solid morning routine for me. And routines are what I was used to, right? I mean, I was all about routines, raising kids and working in corporate America. So I needed to find a routine that was healthy. And that mental wellness piece was a really big missing link for me through all my corporate years. I probably would have been a better leader if I had worked on my mental wellness more. And I'm sure my teams would agree.
No, thank you for being honest. I think that's probably true for a lot of us, right? So thank you.
Relationships. This is another critical area. You know, the overriding theme of what we try to do with our clients is talk about community, building community. But when you walk away, when I walked away from my job at Rollins and then Brown and Brown, I had thousands of relationships, clients, teammates, insurance company underwriters, centers of influence.
Legal, yeah.
I mean, I had thousands of people that I was in touch with on a regular basis. And that ended that last day. And you find yourself without really any relationship. So we take people through a process of identifying your key relationships, getting those back on track, how to meet new people, how to build, coffee time with friends. You have the time, you need to use it to build your relationships, because humans are built to be in good relationships. And if you have good, solid relationships, then you're healthy.
And it's funny, relationships are kind of thrust upon you during your career, right? And in your mind, you can say, like them, don't like them, like her, don't like her, respect this person, whatever, you go through it. But they're all there and they're feeding you one way or another. This is a time in your life when we work our clients through this idea of really, what are the relationships you want to nurture? What have you failed to nurture? Identify that to yourself. Be honest. Where can you do better? And where do you need to just kind of let some relationships go? The toxic ones that don't bring you value anymore. I mean, you're not mandated to sit in that meeting with these people anymore. Do you need them in your life? And I know that sounds harsh, but this is your time, the next 30 years, to be with and do the things you want to do. So the relationship module that we run people through is a really interesting one with a lot of self-reflection.
I love that. I really do love that, because as you say, we work with so many people when we're in our jobs, and you get to choose when you're in retirement who is going to be a healthy and positive impact on your life. So I love that.
Yeah. Spouse partner relationship. If you are in a marriage or you're in a close relationship, when one of you or both of you retire, it is treacherous times, my friends. It is a recipe for disaster. The divorce rate in America is down, but gray divorce, those getting divorced over the age of 50, is up dramatically from 10 years ago. We are not marriage therapists, but I will tell you that over the last 5 years, we have spent so much time with each other, reading and with therapy, trying to find the best way for us to get along. We're getting really good at being couple relationship experts, because we make all the same mistakes a lot of you guys make, but we're working really hard to make sure that we don't. And and the key there is wide open communication and trust and vulnerability.
Yeah. And you have to remember, work was kind of this interesting outlet, right? Mark would get up and we'd have coffee, and then he's out the door, and then I'm out the door, and then, there was a soccer game or a lacrosse game or something, then I'm back at work, and then, roll in with dinner, and next thing you know, it's 9:00 and everybody's tired. You didn't really spend those 24 hours together. No. But when you both retire, it is like cold water on the face, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of being together. And you realize that, for example, I am a huge reactor. So you want someone to run up the hill with you, Joan, I'm your girl. Like I'm ready. Like I'm always on the move, ready to go. That doesn't work very well when you're in a conversation that's looking for a response
Or not a response.
or not a response.
You just want to share what's on your mind. So,
Right.
so this
So we
spouse
had to
partner
learn a
piece,
lot of
yeah,
tools.
is really, really important. Then the last one, wisdom sharing.
Wait. I had a lot of questions while you guys were chatting. I was looking at the Q&A, and a lot of people want to know, and you guys kind of retired together. You sort
Yes.
of retired, you sort of retired separately a little bit because Jody kept working a little bit longer, but a lot of people are afraid to say it out loud, and I'll just say it, that one spouse retires, but the other one is not ready. So one is trying to think about their 30-year retirement plan, and the other one could be still on planes and constant meetings and having this fulfilled life through work.
Right.
So how do you counsel and think about that? Because it sounds like those two paths are on a collision course, or at least not even on a collision because they're not even together. They're on a two ships passing in the night course. That's my first question. And then the second part of that, well, answer that one first. So what is your kind of tips and tricks for the person who wants to retire and then the person who doesn't want to retire?
Well, there's two components there. There's the basic relationship part. So if, I don't know what is new. If they both worked, one retired, the other one didn't retire, they're the one who's at home now and retired, that person is going to build a life for themselves all on their own. And the person who's still working won't be part of that life. So the tip is you've really got to communicate openly to each other, the one who's at home, sharing what they're doing, and always leave a little bit of space in there for the working spouse so that you still have some kind of connection. I mean, that's a short, I mean, it could get longer than that, but that's one tip I would say.
Yeah. And I would say, there's always those ways to plan independent activities that you do alone, and then let's plan for that date night. Let's plan that we're playing tennis on Saturday morning with the neighbors. Let's plan so that there are also those opportunities for camaraderie together, so that you have some joint activities that aren't just talking about the finances or who's going to do the grocery shopping or those type of things. One thing I would tell you, Joan, in that situation, the person that's still working, and there's research behind this, has a dysfunctional thought that now that you're at home, you're going to do more at home. The person that's retired says, now that I'm here, I'm going to go build my life in my community and find my hobbies and find my purpose. And there's a big disconnect, which comes around the most basic things like household chores. And that's where we see a lot of heads get butting. Well, you were home all day. You couldn't take the can to the curb, whatever it might be.
Okay.
So
I'm very guilty. I'm guilty on that. I'm guilty. I told my husband, look at the front yard, get that weed whacker out. You're working from home and I'm traveling. So, okay. A little oversharing. Right. One other thing you said on the relationship, and we're going to go to one last thing on wisdom sharing, but intentionality. And I picked up that you're very intentional about building this relationship as a couple now, a couple who's together all the time. So I want to just raise the word intentionality. Okay, let's move to number 5.
Well, wisdom sharing. I truly believe that everyone on this planet has something for them to do that's much bigger than themselves, and they might not even know what it is yet. And there's this voice we all have in our head for our entire life that's saying, you should do this. You're like, no, I'm never going to do that. You should try this. I can't do that. In retirement, before retirement, you need to start journaling and listening to that little voice to find out maybe there is something I could do. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's volunteering. I mean, everybody should volunteer at some point to help others. So the wisdom sharing component really is taking all your gifts and talents that you've accumulated for the last 66 years from me and regurgitating them and using them to help others. And for Jody and I, it's our YouTube channel. That's our form of wisdom sharing. We research, we regurgitate, we test it, we try it, we fail, we success, and we share it with everybody.
The other thing I would say is, in the wisdom sharing bucket, that is the most fun place to put yourself out there. So for example, I wanted to put myself out there as a mentor, and I mentor in a couple of different women's groups, but went to the University of Hartford and said, in your business class with your juniors that are, seniors next year looking for jobs, any way that I could be a professor for the day. They could give me, and you would be shocked at how many colleges, university, community colleges, high schools would love a business perspective, any business perspective at all. A woman who was in business in the late 80s in New York, let me tell you, it's a little different than, where we're sitting today. And isn't that good? And those type of things. So we reached out to the University of Hartford and did that, for a year with their emerging business class. And that was just a blast. We have 6 kids, but they don't take our coaching quite as well as some of the other kids.
Okay, so those are the 5 kind of pillars. And I think you have an offer for my audience, special offer. So anyone out there multitasking, listen up. This is going to be fun.
Well, yeah, one of the things, products that Jody and I created was a 7-day challenge. It's really a 7-day kickstart for your retirement. And we normally have this online for, I don't know, $39 or something like that. But we worked with Joan and said, we're going to give that to all of you on here for free. There's going to be a link in the comments. If you click that link and register, you have to give your email. You'll have this 7-day challenge, and it's Jody and I for 7 days pumping out a training video in the morning with a worksheet and then a follow-up video at night for 7 days. And you can have this thing forever. You can use it as many times as you want. So if I was you, I would get it because it's free, and it really does help you start to think about the 5 pillars and how you want to kickstart your retirement.
Right. And I think the worksheets that are in there give you a good sample of some thought-provoking questions, which I think we all need around each one of those topics.
Yeah.
I just love it that you're giving us homework. I mean, honestly, you are corporate. Okay. I like it. We got homework and tasks to complete. I love the 7-day challenge because you know what? It's digestible. It's a nugget. It's not like I'm committing to a whole year plan or something like that. So thank you. We really appreciate that offer for our audience. So I want to get into what you've learned from your clients over these years. So people are living longer, right? Into their 70s. They're very active. People are healthier. How is retirement different today than it was maybe for our parents? And obviously, Mark, we understand your dad's situation, but my dad was a coal miner for 42 years, right? He retired and he probably had 10 years of retirement because he was a blue collar kind of guy, and his retirement was wonderful. But how's it different today for us?
Well, because of healthcare and because of other things you can do for longevity, people are living longer and retirement is longer. And I think a lot of it's in your mindset. So for all of the pillars that Jody and I have, we help clients create a vision. So my physical wellness vision is so simple. It's just that I will be physically independent at the age of 90. So that vision is what gets me to meditate in the morning, to exercise every day, to eat right. So if you're doing that, you're going to live longer and you're going to feel better. So knowing that I'm going to live to 90 or even 100, what am I going to do for those 30 years? Right. That's a long time. If my career was 38 and my retirement was 30, what the heck am I going to do? Right. So you've got to have a plan to figure out what to do. And work on your health so that you're healthy as long as you can be.
And and we're not preaching, right? We're consulting and helping. So it's got to be what works in your world, wherever you are, in your mindset, to begin to open those doors to say, I can do these things. I do have the power to control what I'm eating, what I'm meal prepping, how far I'm walking. Mark and I invested in Aura rings, so we know what our heart rate is, our temperature is, how well we slept, how much deep sleep did we get, how hydrated are our bodies. So we're really deep into it because that's important to us. But Joan, what we work with our clients on is what's going to work for them. Yeah. We had a client who was a chief custodial officer of the school district that we were in New York. And he said, I don't have time to exercise. I said, do you have time to take a walk with your wife? He said, I'd love to take a walk with Debbie. I said, well, why don't you walk 10 minutes one way and 10 minutes back? They're up to an hour and a half one way and an hour and a half back. Wow. And they have the most amazing chats while they're doing it. So it's really what works for you.
That's great. My husband had a challenge for me. I didn't quite make it, but he did 100 miles of walking in May of this year. And
That's
so
great.
we had like a little toilet paper ribbon when he was coming across the gate. Everyone was there kind of cheering him on. So
That's
that was
fun.
fun. I tried to join him as much as I could on that.
Right.
Okay, a lot of questions coming in from the audience. I love getting to my audience questions. So here's a big one. How do you know when it's time to retire? So I don't want to think about 62 or 65 or any of those numbers in anybody's minds. What's the right time? How do you advise your clients how to tell when the right time is to retire?
Well, you might not know. So I think the first thing is look at your finances because that's kind of an important triggering event. And if you don't have enough money and you still need to work 3 or 4 more years because your financial consultant told you to do that, then do that. But if you're financially set, then it's time to really start thinking about what do you want to retire into. Don't just leave for the sake of leaving, but really spend some time. And I think on our YouTube channel, I know we have that on there. We have 3 videos, 10 years to retirement, 5 years to retirement, and then your last year at work. And in there, there's some free download worksheets, checklists to really help you trigger what to do. So that might be a good place for people to start.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Jody?
No, what I was going to say is, if you're the fortunate one that you can choose your retirement date, not your age, but your date, you kind of know your internal voice is starting to tell you, I'm less interested in X, Y, and Z, and I'm, kind of tuning out on A, B, and C, and, these things aren't getting me jazzed anymore, and I'm financially secure enough to do it. We have a lot of clients, unfortunately, through COVID, where retirement was forced upon them. And that's a whole different mindset shift that we have to go through and uncover and peel back and, kind of get rid of some of the hurt that comes with that.
Okay. I'm going to pivot because this hour is just flying by. So I want to talk about your YouTube channel, but first I want to talk about you guys started a business. So a lot of people in the chat are saying they didn't retire. They just started a new business. So I want to talk about that and how you advise clients about maybe just trying something new. A lot of people know my story of trying golf. That was a new thing for me, a nearly 60-year-old person. And are you ever too old to try something new? And then I want to talk about your YouTube channel and social media marketing, which older people like us, I mean, we have a hard time with social media, and you guys have built this incredible business. And I want to talk about that because if someone's building a business, they might want to build a social media marketing program. So go on the first
one.
Well,
we just recorded a video. We're recording a video tomorrow, 25 part-time jobs for retirees. I think it's really important to work after your career. To play every day, 7 days a week without any work at all, which could be writing a book. I just finished writing my first book. Almost finished it. I always thought I'd write a book, but it would be about insurance. Now I'm writing a book. It's called The Evolving Man, Life Virtues Men Don't Talk About. I mean, where did that come from? But I think everyone has a book in them, and everyone's got another career after this big career. So I'm a big fan of working through retirement.
And what I would say, I think if we could retire the word retirement and come up with something else, it's not like it used to be. You retire and die. You retired because you were, you worked so hard physically that your body couldn't keep up with it afterwards, and then you would die. I mean, we're going to retire and have all these years. So if we could get rid of that word and really just think of this as, the next 30 years, the next chapter, I don't want to sound cliche, but, something different than the word retirement. This is your next opportunity to do what fills your soul, what fills your cup, what makes your body tick, like investing in relationships that feed you. I mean, now is the time, and you have 30 years. So, I would say that, if we could just get rid of that word, our marketing firm tells us we can't, so it's still in all of our literature, but
it's going to change. I do believe it's going to change over time. I think in high school and college, they will start to teach now about this third phase of life, and it'll have some structure to it.
I love that. Okay, you talked about social media marketing. We have a slide to show everyone. So for someone who wants to start a new business or a new venture, let's take a look at your slide here on social media marketing for a minute, and then we're going to close the program with the 5 practical
Okay.
tips.
Okay.
So we're going
So
to get to
thi-
the 5. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I never really watched YouTube. We started this in May of 21. We put up a new video every week through the end of the year. We had 180 subscribers.
Mostly family.
Mostly family. We did it again for 12 months. We had 1,800 subscribers. So we had 1,800 subscribers in January of this year. We just kept putting up video, and then something happened. And now we're about to get 30,000 subscribers, and we just crossed over 2 million views. We're not YouTube experts, but we're learning, we're researching, we joined some masterminds. So, I would encourage everyone, there's something out there for you if you have the time and the patience and the desire to learn. And it's a great time to learn. It keeps your brain sharp. So there's so much content on here. I mean, everything we talked about today, there's hundreds of hours of video and worksheets. It's all free. So go to it. We love to have you subscribe. That's kind of fun, but
And it's free.
it's free.
Yeah.
Look around at that stuff. It's great. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Okay. I love that it's free. So I'm all about free. So take us to your 5 practical tips for retirement. And I have to say, there's so many questions coming in the chat. I promised my audience we're going to have another webinar on this in 2024. We're going to invite you back just because the feedback is you're blowing up the website right now. Okay. So 5 most important retirement tips.
Well, the other thing, just to let people know, if you're on Facebook, Retirement Transformed has a Facebook community. We go live every week. That's free as well. Joan loves free. And we take all your questions all day long in there. So, but 5 things. You have to plan well in advance. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You got to have some time to put together a plan.
And I think it's important, the second thing, get your finances in order. And by that, I don't mean checks and balances, but know what they are, because you will be in a different place with your finances now, right? You're no longer accruing assets. You're like deaccumulating and working through it. A budget is really important. So you have to know what the finances
Communication and building community is critical. We talked about that a lot. Our communication is critical. Number 4, we talked about that too. You've got to focus on health and wellness. It needs to take a front seat to everything and anything you do. And the last one, and some people criticize us for this, or they ask us, why do we do this? We have pretty solid routines. And when we get our routines going, and I'm up early, I'm journaling, I'm exercising, Jody's off to yoga at 5:30. We try to eat right. We have coffee every morning for 30 minutes alone, just reviewing the day. And when we're on point with our habits and routines, we're good.
Yeah.
When we go off point, when we're on vacation, we get a little screwed up, but it's okay. We do it on purpose. So,
or when Jody brings home a new puppy, which happened a couple of weeks ago.
Solid routines and good habits are important.
Yeah. Those are the best 5.
Yes. No, I love that. I love that. And I did that once to my husband. I brought home a new dog, and we asked for forgiveness later. We did not ask for permission. So listen, the hour has flown by. You guys got an A+ on content and an A+ on delivery. And I mean that because I could tell all of our listeners are still on the line listening to your content, and it's just fabulous. And I want to say thank you for sharing it with us, because I think a lot of us are really nervous about this phase of our lives. And I did take a course in college. It was called The 3 Boxes of Life. I don't know if you read that book, but I didn't even read the 3rd box because it's like, oh, we'll get to that later. So I appreciate you having such an engaging way to deliver your content. And we're going to go look at those YouTube channels. So I'm going to talk about a few upcoming webinars, but I want to thank you again. Any closing thoughts for our audience?
No, we're grateful to be here. Download that 7-day challenge. And I think you're going to put the link in your follow-up. That's really important. Jump on the YouTube channel, come to our Facebook community and ask us a question.
There's a lot of free information.
Yeah.
Excellent. Speaking of free, who wants a free lunch? Who's in Dallas, Texas on November 29th? We're having a cybersecurity symposium at the Bush Presidential Institute there in Dallas. So please join us. Register travelersinstitute.org for that cybersecurity luncheon. It's going to be delicious and you're going to learn a lot. And then our very last webinar for 2023 on December 13th, we're going to talk about the real estate market, commercial real estate, residential real estate, the rental market. with the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. So Lawrence Yoon came on our show about a year ago, and that was another just A+ on content, A+ on deliveries. Fascinating guy talking about real estate. So don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. You can find all this great content as well. If you have a second, take a survey for us. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you for your engagement. We're so highly excited to really see the engagement of our audience on all these sessions. So thank you so much. Have a great week.